Let's do this.
It's showtime.
You're listening to the Thoughts of a Blog Queen podcast.
These are just my thoughts.
With your host, LaRae Renee.
A woman, her thoughts, and a mic.
Are you ready? Check this out.
Hey y'all, welcome to Thoughts of a Blog Queen podcast. I am your host, LaRae Renee, also known as Blog Queen, and y'all know what time it is. It's time for me to pour into you, and we're going to do things a little bit different. So first of all, welcome to entry 40, right? This is the start of the solo series. So I got a lot that I want to unpack in this series. A lot. We're going to talk about all aspects of the solo series, but before we get into that, I still have to pour into you. Y'all know how we do this at the beginning of the episode, but I'm going to switch things up. While we're in the solo series, I am going to give you a dose of self-love. And so this is actually a book that I've been kind of going through, and I like the way that it's set up. It just gives you these different passages each day. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a dose of self-love for each entry that we get through the solo series. All right. So first up, entry 40, a dose of self-love. But first, love yourself, because the love of self is non-negotiable. But then love yourself, because the love of self requires no apologies and comes with no contingencies. But also love yourself, because the love of self is laced in forgiveness and dipped in authenticity. All right, so that is your dose of self-love, and I love that because I feel like it really just embodies kind of like phases of self-love. So if you paid attention to it, it says, but first love yourself, but then love yourself, but also love yourself. So it's kind of promoting that self-love no matter what, right? No matter what happens, no matter what phase of life you're in, no matter what season you're in, always remember to love yourself. It's non-negotiable. So, you guys, let's go ahead and get into this entry. I hope you guys are doing well. Happy Self-Care Sunday. Y'all know how we're doing Sundays. We're taking time to be intentional about the self-care that we put into ourselves. And this, you guys, is actually going to be a blog breakdown. So this is probably going to be a little bit quicker than normal entries. I know you guys say I say that all the time. It's going to be quicker, but it's actually, when I do a blog breakdown, if you are not familiar, a blog breakdown means that there is an actual written blog to pair with this entry. So if you check out the blog on the Sharon Pink Promos website, there is a Thoughts of a Blog Queen blog column, and there is a blog that pairs with this. And so I'm pretty much going to be going through this blog, reading this blog to you, but kind of giving you a few ad-libs along the way, so you can kind of dive deeper into, kind of where I was going with the blog. So, the title of this blog is Going Into Her Solo Season, and this is part 1. So I'm going to do 5 parts to this. Now, I don't know, there's going to be 5 parts to the written blog. I don't know if there's going to be 5. I think there's probably going to be more than 5 entries on the podcast, but there will be 5 parts to this blog. So I'm going to have at least 5 blog breakdowns. And I like the blog breakdowns because I feel like, some people, they like to read, and I'm a writer, so I still like to write my blogs out. But I feel like when I do a blog breakdown, I can kind of give you more of my feeling and my emphasis, and where, just kind of you hear it coming from me versus just reading it. So that's why I like to do a blog breakdown here and there. So yeah, going into her solo season, this is part 1, and this is deeper than just your singleness. So when we're talking about a solo season, there are going to be different ways that people view a solo season, right? A solo season can be whatever you want it to be, really whatever you need it to be, but it's going to be a point in time where you realize that you need some time to yourself, to focus on yourself, because you probably need to like get some things in line. So, so let's start with the why. Why would any woman need to go into her solo season? Well, there can be a number of reasons as to why she should, but there will often be a strong want to as well, right? She's going to want to do it. It's going to be like, I need to do this for myself. To take a specific season, for however long that is, to discover things about yourself with the intention to do this with very little to no connection to others while doing so, is something that takes your self-love and your self-care to another level. So place an emphasis on that very little to no connection to others. Does it mean that you completely just shut yourself off from the world and isolate yourself? No, let's not confuse a solo season with isolation. Isolation, I feel like, is multidimensional, and I feel like that's probably a whole nother entry, so I'm not going to go too deep into isolation, but that's not necessarily what the solo season is. But I feel like for us, when your mental level has reached its capacity, right? Meaning you are feeling the effects of an overload of emotions due to either the everyday responsibilities that you have going on in your life, the things that you just have to do, that you have to prioritize in your life, or you're feeling that the connections that you have in your world, they're not providing you with a healthy balance of positive energy, right? That could be another reason. It may be time to go in your solo season if either of these things are true. And there are multiple reasons, honestly, but if either of those things are true, I feel like those two are very significant. And when we move forward, we will go into the signs. Actually, I think the next entry, so make sure you tune in, keep up with me on this series, but the next entry we'll talk about the signs of when you might know that it's time to go into your solo season. But yeah, so for me, let's get a little personal. For me, going into my solo season felt necessary. And if you follow me on social media and you go back, I'm going to be really honest with you. My solo season has lasted for a couple years, actually. Yeah, I've been in my solo season for a couple of years. And it just felt like it was the right time and the right thing to do for me. I had feelings of pain, fear, stress, abandonment, loneliness, and an overwhelming feeling of uncertainty. And all of these things played factors in my decision to move into a solo season. I felt like a solo season would be the remedy for me, and I'm still in my solo season. That's the thing. Like, I'm still in it currently. And so I'm still occupying this space in my life, and I can confidently 100% without a doubt say that it has been one of the most insightful and challenging, yet it has been rewarding periods of my life. Very insightful. When you go into your solo season, you are able to be very introspective, and you are able to really hear yourself, among other things. Hear how you respond to things. Take a look back and really reflect on how you responded to things. Look at things in hindsight. You're able to just like really kind of like see like, okay, what space of mind was I in when I made this decision, or when I said these things, or when I decided to do this? Like, what space of mind was I in? Because it may look different when you're in your solo season. So I can look back and there are things that like I did a year ago, and I don't see that I would even make those same decisions where I'm at today. I just don't see it. And that is not only growth, but that's just, like I said, that's that introspection where you're just kind of like, when you're in the moment of it, you don't necessarily, I'm not going to say you don't really realize what you're doing, but sometimes you don't. But I'm just saying that, like, when you're in the moment, you make decisions on what you think is best for that time. But then when you're out of that moment and then you go into a period of your life, such as your solo season, where you're able to really take a look at the decisions that you made and the choices that you made and see things for what they are, you really just, sometimes you really gain perspective. And it's kind of like, damn, okay, I did that. So I want to define my definition of the solo season a little bit more clearly. So the solo season is a period in one's life where introspection of themselves takes a priority over what has typically been routine. All right, let me say that again. The solo season is a period in one's life where introspection of themselves takes a priority over what has typically been routine. It means that you are choosing to disconnect from the outside factors of your day-to-day life, within all things reasonable, of course. And you're just focusing on you. And when I say within all things reasonable, I mean that, like, you know, like I said, we're not to confuse this with isolation. Going into your solo season isn't saying, oh, I'm going to my room, I'm going to lock my door, and I'm not going to, you know what I mean? I'm not going to speak to anybody for the next 30 days. No. Because you have to be reasonable about it. Like, obviously, I still work. We still grind. We still have things that we do. If we're mothers, we still have children to take care of. Like, you know what I mean? So going into your solo season is more, honestly, I would say it is probably like 75% mental and 25% physical, because you do have to, I feel like, kind of disconnect yourself physically from things, but it's more so mental than anything, because you really have to program your mind in that season to understand that you're about to maneuver as though you are in your solo season. And so things are going to change. It's taking an authentic approach to self-awareness and understanding that you always have room and the capacity for more growth, right? Because that's the goal. That's what we're always trying to do. We want to grow, right? We never stop growing. I talked about that, I think, a little bit in the last entry. It was like, growth is great, right? And it's great to see how we've grown from one point to the next. But like, I honestly feel like growth is something that we'll continue to do. We'll continue to do it. It's not something that really ever stops. So it could consist of healing from a trauma or a failed relationship. It could be disciplining yourself in different ways, both physically and mentally. So you just might start changing some things, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more too. But it could be putting a magnifying glass over your evolution in life thus far, meaning how far you've come, and understanding the significance of the changes through it. So the evolution of you from your 20s to your 30s to your 40s to your 50s to your, like, wherever you are, your teens to your 20s, if you're in your late 20s, if you're in your early 30s, if you're in your early 40s, if you just hit 40, wherever you are, the evolution of you, and understanding the significance of the changes that you've made through there. And hopefully you have progressively made positive changes. We want to always go forward. We don't really want to make too many steps back. And taking the steps back, they're not going to be going backwards. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to fall short. We're going to do things we're like, probably shouldn't have did that, but I did it anyway. Or I know better than this, but you know what? Temptation is a bitch. So I made this decision and I got to live with it. And now I need to reflect on why I did it. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying that we make the decisions and we're just trying to really put a scope on why we made certain decisions. But it could also be attempting to understand some of the wrongs and giving yourself the grace to forgive yourself for each of those mistakes. So like I said, when you make those mistakes and you're just kind of like, yeah, I knew better. I really knew better. And they say if you knew better, you do better. Sometimes, you know what? We're human. We make some decisions sometimes, and they're not always necessarily the right pick, because that's what human beings do. But it is with hopes that you're learning from these decisions that you're making and these things that you classify as mistakes, because sometimes things may not always be a mistake. And that's a mindset thing right there, to learn how to look at certain things as maybe not necessarily a mistake, but maybe like a detour, if you will. Or like I said, when we talked about failure in the last entry, or the last couple of entries, we talked about how failure can be looked at as just you collecting data. So it's kind of like, if we can look at the mistakes that we make, because I think that will help us to give us the grace that we need. And so we're not always just down on ourselves and like just feeling terrible. Because that's something that we tend to do. We tend to like make the wrong choices or make mistakes, and then we're really hard on ourselves. We feel bad. I know for me, sometimes I'll do something, or I've made a decision and I'm just kind of like, oh gosh, why did I do that? Like, why did I do that in the moment? You know what I mean? And then I have to realize, okay, you did this because of this right here. This is why you did this, because this is what you desire. This is what you're feeling you lack, or this is what you've always wanted, or this is something that you've never done in your life. And so you know what I mean? Like, there's always a reason to why you make some of the choices that you make in that moment. So the idea of it all is to reflect on that. So giving yourself that grace, we talked about that, the space and the grace to forgive yourself for those mistakes, right? Understand this about your solo season. Your solo season is custom made. It's custom made. You have to decide how to tailor fit it to what you need at this particular time in your life. So will I say, okay, I don't feel like your solo season is going to be, all right, I'm giving myself 30 days, but that, like, maybe it is for you. Maybe it is giving yourself 30 days you know what I mean? It's custom. You have to figure out what's going to be best for yourself. But I would encourage you not to put a time limit on it. Because I feel like once you put a time limit on your solo season, then you're kind of forcing yourself to have this great perspective or this big epiphany by the end of 30 days. And then if you don't, then what? No. So really, you know what I mean? Like, I encourage you not to necessarily put a timestamp on how long your solo season is, because listen, when I went into it, could I have told you that my solo season was going to consist of a couple of years? No, but it has. And that's because I'm not through with it yet. I'm not through with my solo season yet. I'm still learning things. I'm still feeling things. I'm still taking the time to understand myself through things. I'm still figuring a lot of things out in my solo season. So it's just not over. And one of the things that kind of inflicted what I would say would be the catalyst for why I personally went into my solo season was because, number one, life at the time was life and I had to go through things with my living situation where I wasn't even able to live in my own home. I had to get like a major construction, and I think I've talked about that at some periods of time during one of these entries. I had to go through that, and so I wasn't even able to I wasn't even able to live in my house for about 5 months. I wasn't able to live in my house, and that life event brought upon a huge, massive amount of stress towards me. Very stressed. And because of that stress, my reaction to the stress was I was doing things that were not good for me. I was overeating. I was lashing out. I was choosing not to see things for what they actually were. It was just a very stressful time. And so it was at that point when I realized, like, this is how you're handling, I was drinking more just because, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm just being real authentic. Like, it was stressful. So, and I was in a relationship at that time, but I had to deal with a lot of what came along with that life event. You know what I mean? Like I had to handle that. And so, because it was my home, you know what I mean? So like primarily I had to handle a lot of those things, and I had to make a lot of decisions. And just, if you've ever dealt with insurance companies and construction companies and contractors and all of those things, it's a lot. It's stressful. I don't wish that on anybody, but so it was how I was reacting to that life event that I realized that my management of stress was not the greatest, and that I needed to take some time and be very introspective and be like, I was for me, I've always been really good. I'm really good at being self-aware. I'm really good at being self-aware, I feel like, and it might take me a minute, but I'm pretty good at being self-aware about something. So, I realized that I just wasn't handling that period of my life really well, and I needed to figure out better ways to handle myself and get through things, because that may not be the last time that I have to deal with a life event that is very stressful for me, and I need to be better to myself. So then when I started it, I got into the gym, I was really like focusing, and I was really like trying to get a hold on what I needed to do for myself. But it's just getting back to you, and that's what I needed. Right? So it's, like I said, it's taking a break from other connections, right? But not to be confused with isolation. So let's unpack the isolation for a minute. So when I say it's not to be confused with isolation, I want you to understand that it's not, like I said, it's not locking yourself away. It's not just declining all calls. It's just limiting the connections you may have been used to yielding in and pouring so much of yourself into, and just pulling back from those attachments. But again, like I said, you're the designer of the season, so it's going to look and it's going to feel the way you desire it to be. And your heart and your mind are going to guide you through this. They're going to take you through. They're going to let you know. So that's why I said, like, I really don't feel like you should put a timestamp on how long your solo season is, but just go into it knowing this is where I'm at right now. You're going to just decide to do things differently. And you may need to be intentional about some of the things that you're doing in your life. So that could change. That could change with how much you interact with people in your life, with family, with friends. And when I put in the subtitle that it's deeper than singleness, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be single. Because like I said, I feel like a solo season is probably more, it's greater, it's mentally greater than it is physically. So just like as an example, and we're going to touch on this a little bit more later on into this series, but solo travel may be an element of your solo season. And with this could potentially come the curiosity of people in your life as to why you're doing this. Why are you solo traveling? Why are you trying to take trips or why are you trying to do things on your own? Why are you trying to go places on your own? Well, that's because that's what I felt like I needed to do. So people are going to be curious, why are you taking trips by yourself? Why are you trying to go? You know what I mean? Like, why are you trying to go? Because like for me, like, I'm like, listen, I'm trying to go to Puerto Rico. I'm trying to go to Jamaica. Like, I'm trying to do these things. And I'm okay with doing them by myself. And, just expressing this to certain people. Like, why are you trying to go out of the country by yourself? Or why? And I get it. Because, there's safety. So I get that part of it too. But you're still going to choose to do it. I'm still going to do it. And I'm going to do it because I feel comfortable with that choice. And I find it necessary because going into your solo, so when you talk about your solo season and solo travel, it may be necessary because you may need to remove yourself from the environment that you're in. And you may not be able to go and pick up and go and travel somewhere and stay there for months at a time. No, but you may need to remove yourself from the energy that you're used to being in. So if you can take a week away and go somewhere just out of the energy of where you've been, your home, your work, take that PTO time, y'all. Use it. You've earned it. Use it. Use your PTO. And even if you can't financially, Solo travel, do a staycation. Get out of your house, go stay in a nice hotel, one of your favorite hotels, or find a nice hotel on a different side of town, your downtown area, whatever. Get out of the energy of your home and really, really go into hermit mode and think about some things while you're in your solo season. But solo travel, I feel like, is a big one. And that's something that I am definitely going to go into. And I am going to talk about that a little further down into the series. And I am going to take a solo trip. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, that, you know, when you do this, it's a different environment. And you're going to get excitement and satisfaction from it. And you're going to look forward to it. I'm really looking forward to embarking on solo travel. And I'm doing a lot of things now to try to help me prepare for it. Financially, mentally. I got to work on this anxiety. But I got to do it. It's one of those things that I have to do because I need it. And like I said, people may question your solo season, and that's okay. They may question it. They may question why you're not answering the phone. They may question why you're not coming out as much as you used to. And you know what? You either offer an explanation for it or you don't have to. That choice is yours. That's the beautiful thing about your solo season. Like I said, your solo season is custom made. You can offer very little explanation, understanding, and clarity to people, or you can really be authentic and really go into break it all down. Listen, this is what's going on, and this is what I need to do. Don't take it personal, but I really, I need some space away from everything and everybody in my life right now, including you. And that's what I have to do for myself. Because, see, the thing is, the attitude and mindset in this season is equivalent to respectfully not really caring what others think about your choices. So even if they, people making comments about why you don't call or you haven't answered the phone or you haven't come by, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, I get it. You know what I mean? But honestly, it's not that you don't care, but you kind of don't. Because this is a time that you have to be intentional about taking for yourself. You're more focused on consistently doing what you think is best for you, not what you think other people are going to think is best or what other people think you should be doing. No, it's what you think is best. The explanation only has to make sense to you. Remember that. And to be clear, even though it's more common for a person going into their solo season, they're single. I would say it's probably more common. It isn't necessarily about being single and not dating. Because like I said, when I started my solo season, I was not single. I was very much in a full-on relationship. But like I said, I mentally had to decide that, like, okay, I gotta go. I gotta be a little bit more introspective about some things. So I was in a relationship when this started. But it's not about being single and not dating or not having anyone in your intimate life. It's deeper than that, because honestly, even in relationships at times, we can still be faced with the inward feelings of whether or not a relationship journey is something we can continue to embark on. And we may even feel like we need to acquire that quote unquote space from the relationship, as we might call it, that space. I need a little bit of space. Now, if you're listening to, if you're married, that is different. So like I said, it's got to be different. So you just have to figure out, okay, if you're married, but you feel like you need this solo season, how's that going to look for you? And how are you going to communicate that to your spouse? That this is what you're going to do, because you want to make sure that you're communicating. That is something that you do have to communicate out of respect for your marriage and respect for the emotions and the feelings of your partner, you do want to kind of explain it, but explain it in a way that you're making them understand what it is about, and that it's not about them. It's about me. This isn't about me like trying to go leave the family for a week. No, like I said, your solo season may have to be a bit more mental than it is physical. It just depends. It's different when you're a single woman, you live alone, you're not dating anybody, and you decide to go in your solo season, versus you're a woman who has a lot of responsibilities. You have small children. You are taking care of a household. You're running a business. You have family issues going on. You may have had some things you need to communicate with your partner. There may be a little bit of stickiness or tension between you and your spouse. And you may need to take some time to figure out how you need to deliver some of the things that you're feeling. So you may need to take a solo season for that. Like I said, it's deeper than just being single. So like I said, my solo season actually began where I was in a very, it was a long-term relationship. And at that point, I probably was already in my relationship for 2 to 3 years at the time when it started. I was very much in this long-term relationship, which later would become a part of my life that had to come to an end. And it is because of this season that I was in, this season of introspection, that I would discover this. Yeah, I had to make some hard decisions. I had to face some hard truths. I had to really go inward, and I had to really step outside of myself for a minute and look at things for exactly what they were. And I had to face things that I wasn't ready to face, but I had to do this. And I had to realize what was not for me any longer. So again, there are a number of reasons as to why one would choose a solo season. And it is with hopes that during this particular season, you will become crystal clear as to your why. Another thing that I think that we can kind of dive into is creative inspiration. I think that's another honorable mention and benefit of going into your solo season, and definitely was for me, because it's one of those elements that could come to us in so many different ways and forms that will allow us to express what we may have been bottling up or felt like we didn't have the time or space to lean into. So to actually make the time to explore your passions and bring them to life in a season that is designed to cater to your mental and emotional needs can be a beautifully curated project and process along the way. When you go into a solo season, if you are a creative like myself, I write, I blog, I podcast, I create content, I do all things creative. That some of my best ideas and my best writing flow have come while I've been in my solo season. I've gotten more motivated. I've been more intentional. I've just been able to really figure out what I creatively, the bigger picture. And I've been able to really embrace that and really go in, you know what I mean? I've kind of defined a little bit more of the things that I want to do. It has become over time a little bit more clear, to where I've been able to really kind of niche down into self-care. Whereas that wasn't necessarily where my mind was creatively a year ago. And the ideas that I finally have figured out that I wanted to do with, as far all of these writing projects and things, I finally figured out how to make all of this connect and everything that I want to do. So like I said, when you go into your solo season, you really have a chance to just really embrace the time and figure some things out. Because in your solo season, you may seek clarity and you're going to find those answers. You are. You're going to make very significant changes in your life, and they're going to feel good that you made those changes. One of the things, like another personal just kind of like element of my solo season, like for me, drinking has changed. Whereas, I was down to like, I'm going to have some drinks. And I'm not saying that I quit drinking. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that like my idea and the attachment, not addiction. I was never like the attachment that I had to drinking is not there anymore. Because that was something that I intentionally decided that I wanted to separate myself from a little bit. Whereas I just wanted to kind of fall back from it a little bit. To where now, like, I don't even purchase it like how I used to. I can't even really tell you like, I'll buy a bottle of wine here and there or keep wine in the house. But it's just changed. And I can't even tell you the last time that I actually bought like alcohol, like liquor. To where it's turned more, to where it's like, I'm like, okay, it's Taco Tuesday. I had a bad day at work. I'll go have some drinks with my friends. You know what I mean? Like, it went from that to where it's just kind of like, no, like, I'm a little bit more conscious now of like my body and my health and the intake and where I'm at, like my age and just getting older and just being more aware of things. And so that was one of the big things that I would say have altered while I've been in my solo season. Where I'm just like, I just don't have that desire to just drink just for, for the hell of it anymore. It's just not that great. Will definitely still have some drinks. I will definitely still have a night of fun if I link up with my girls, or if I take a trip somewhere and I'm on the beach, I am going to have some drinks. So this is not about me trying to say, oh, quit drinking in your solo season. No, what I'm saying is that was one of the things, as a personal example, that was one of the things that I realized while I went into this season. It was one of the things that I realized that I kind of wanted to change a little bit. I wanted to alter my consumption of alcohol. And I've done it. It's not something that, like, I've done it. I've been successful at it. And that was a benefit, right? That can only be a benefit when you're, that's a health benefit. So when you go into your solo season, you will seek clarity and you will find answers. I hope that if you're thinking that it's time for a solo season, I hope that you cleanse wounds and heal them. I hope that you battle those fears and overcome them. And I hope that you establish your goals and be successful at achieving them. But sis, whatever you need in your solo season, whatever you need it to be, I just hope that you find peace within it. So over the next few weeks, I hope to bring you some content that will give you kind of like a positive perspective on the solo season for a woman. And I hope that somewhere at some point, there will be some women that are listening to this that will embrace this series and connect and find the relatability to it on a deeper level. I hope that you enjoy your journey. I really do. I hope that it's everything that you need it to be. I hope that when you go into it, you go into it with an open mind, a clear heart, intentionality. And I hope that whenever it does come to a quote unquote end, that you got out of it exactly what you wanted to get out of it. And don't forget to journal. Y'all know how I feel about journaling. Journal things throughout, especially if you weren't ever a journaler now, journal now. If you're or when you decide to go into your solo season, journal, honey. And if you are not a writer, listen, I am a writer. I like to write things down. So I'm always pushing journaling, right? But journaling can also be audio. You have an audio tool, an audio app on your phone. Journal those things. Journal your feelings via like audio app. Talk about it. If that's, you know what I mean? But I'm a little bit more biased into writing things down in a journal. But I want you just like, you know what I mean? Like the very pivotal moments in your solo season. These are the things that I really want you to document, because these are the things that I want you to look back at when you come out of this season. So I think we can stop this here. Come back and tune in for part 2 of the blog. That is, there will be 5 parts to the solo series blog, but I don't know how many entries we're going to do on the podcast. I really, honestly, in my mind, thinking about it now, I feel like the entire 40s, like this is entry 40, so I feel like all the way through entry 49 could potentially be our solo series. Our whole 40s could be the solo series, but we'll see. I definitely know we'll get to 45. Depending on how I can break these entries down into what I want to bring to you, we'll see. But I know we'll go at least until 45, but I really feel like maybe the entire 40s will be this solo series. But yeah, you guys, so that's it. Again, this was just a blog breakdown. So if you are curious about what I just spoke on or what I read to you, you can check out the blog on my Thoughts of a Blog Queen column, which is on the Sharing Pink Promos website. I will have it linked in the show notes for you. Check out the blog. Let me know you visited. Leave a comment on the blog. If you're following me on social media and you see a post for this entry, comment, let me know what you think. And most importantly, if you are an Apple user, please, if you haven't already, leave me a review. Let me know what your thoughts are. That would be extremely wonderful. That would be a great help to me. And I love reading your reviews. And shout out to all of my social media connects who have inboxed me and who have given me their thoughts. Shout out to you ladies. You're what I do it for. You're like, it means a lot to me when I get the feedback from you. So shout out to all of you. You know who you are. Yeah, y'all. So I think I'm going to wrap this up right here. And I hope that if you're listening to this on release day, which is Self-Care Sunday, I hope that you're doing something amazing for yourself. I hope that you're getting rest. I hope that you're doing something for yourself, your body, your mind, your soul, something for just you. This is your day. Relax, enjoy it, soak it in. I hope that you have an amazing week going forward. If you have to work tomorrow, whatever your week is going to look like going forward for the next 5 days, I hope that it's just great. I hope that it's positive, and I hope that you get things done. I hope that an unexpected blessing comes your way. I hope that you reach a goal that you have been trying to reach. I hope that you get a blessing that you've been praying about. I hope that you get clarity on something that you've been seeking answers to. I hope that something in you blossoms. I hope that your creative energy flourishes, and I hope that you just are blessed. So, until next time, you guys, I love you, and peace and blessings.
Let's do this. It's showtime.
You're listening to the Thoughts of a Blog Queen podcast
These are just my thoughts.
with your host, LaRae Renee.
A woman, her thoughts, and a mic.
Are you ready? Check this out.